All the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies, put your hands up. I'm not single, but if you are, then put your hand up because this week's episode of Let's Grow Girls is for you. And wait, if you're not single, don't leave just yet, because I really do believe that the Lord has something for every single one of you who are tuning into this episode. Single, dating, engaged, married, because here's the reality of singleness, right? You've either been through it or you're in it, or okay, there's like two options. You've either been through it or you're in it. But if you're not in it anymore and you think that this is not applicable to you, I would challenge you with this, that one day you're going to have a single friend or a single daughter, and they're going to come to you for advice, and you're going to be so grateful you listened to Let's Grow Girls episode, all the single ladies. But on a serious note, guys, I've been really excited to talk to y'all about this because it's been stirring in my heart for like 2 weeks, and I didn't post a Let's Grow Girls episode or record last week. There was honestly a lot happening, and I don't want to make a habit of not obviously recording and doing an episode when things get hectic, because life can always be hectic. But last week it just gave me the opportunity to fine tune some things and really just like wrestle with the Lord of what would he have me talk about and what do you girls want to talk about. And I'm so grateful in such a weird way that I didn't post, because you girls had such great questions about singleness. And so today we're going to work through those. I actually just made a literal list for those of you watching the YouTube channel. Here's the list. And I really just want to work through all these questions, and I'm going to try to be concise and timely. However, just know that there are going to be multiple episodes where I think we're going to break down each question and just spend all the time on each question, because I really do think that these could all be their own individual podcast episodes. But for the sake of time and for today, we're going to kind of assess each one topically and then dive kind of deep at the end on something that I am just really excited to jump in with you guys about. But at the very beginning, we're going to start right here, and it is, how should I spend my singleness? And then the second question that I want to partner with it is, how can singleness be fun if it's not spent in the worldly way? The first thing I want to share is, a lot of you are probably asking, especially those who don't know me, is why should I listen to this girl and what she has to say about singleness? Because I've not only been there, but I feel like I did it the complete wrong way. I spent my singleness doing it exactly how the world told me it would be the most fun. And honestly, guys, I'm not going to be ignorant. There's obviously an element to sinfulness that is fun. Because it's not like we're all walking around like, oh my gosh, sinfulness is terrible, partying is terrible, going out with my buddies, doing whatever I want, acting like there's no consequences is so boring. I don't want to, like, there is obviously an element of quote unquote fun that comes with when we live out our fleshly desires, right? I think there's a really big part of us that buys into this lie that it's freeing, it's freedom. When I get to do what I want, how I want, when I want, where I want, who I want, without ever having any regard to any kind of standard or moral standard, or if God cares or he's gonna be mad at me or whatever. Like when I just get to do whatever I want and please my flesh with how I want, that's true freedom, right? And I think there are a lot of people who view Christianity, walking with Jesus, as, why did I just say that like that? Jesus, as losing your freedom. But in reality, that's just an oxymoron, because it is the Son who came to set us free for the sake of freedom. Like literally, he came to set us free. Okay, so what that means is that we were enslaved and he came to set us free from something. And if life apart from Jesus was freedom, then why would he have to come and set us free, right? And I think that this is what I want you to understand, is that you do have a master, okay? And I think that is something that we feel uncomfortable with. We don't like, especially in today's culture. We don't want to be told what to do by anybody. We don't want to be told that our way is wrong in any shape, way, or form. But you know what? There is a right way. There is a wrong way. There is a good way. There is a bad way. There is a way that leads to life, and there is a way that leads to death and destruction. And that is truth. Okay. And so what you need to understand is that if you are living out your sinfulness and you're walking in your fleshly ways and you're pleasing and gratifying your flesh in any way you choose and please to do so, you are a slave to your flesh. You are literally a slave to your stomach, to your eyes. And that sounds so weird. Like some of you, you're like, oh my gosh, thinking that's so dramatic, but it's not. You are a slave to your appetite. That's who you serve. And some of you feel like, yeah, I serve myself. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because some of you don't even know what you would do on a Saturday night if it wasn't including, getting drunk and hanging out with your buddies. And I can say that because I really have been there and I get it. And there was definitely a time in my life where it was like I could not see past the Friday night, Saturday night. I lived for the weekend. And I couldn't wait to get that high of like going to a bar, getting wasted and hooking up with someone. Like that was this thrill, I thought. And it was my version of fun at the time. And the reality is like, it's not until you're on the other side of that and you've actually found real freedom that you look at that and see just how enslaved you were. And guys, I needed like, as much as I acted like I can do what I want, when I want, how I want, when I choose to, it's like, no, that wasn't true. I needed to hook up with a guy to make myself feel beautiful, to make myself feel wanted and desirable. I needed to get drunk to escape the things that I didn't want to think about, to escape the mundane life of Monday through Thursday, to make myself feel free, to make myself feel fun, to make myself feel funny, to have a good time. I got to a point where I literally, if alcohol wasn't involved, then I couldn't have a good time. Like I didn't know how to have fun without alcohol. And I didn't find really any interest in having any sort of other fun if it didn't involve alcohol. And I started needing all these things that I told myself was me being free. And I think sometimes in our singleness, we buy into this lie of like, I'm going to do what I want, when I want, how I want, and who I want. And later I'll follow Jesus. And that's a really scary thing to live by. And I also think that if that's the way that you're living and if that's the mentality you have, then maybe, just maybe, you don't get Jesus. And what I say by that is I don't mean to imply shame or condemnation on you. That I never want to do that. That's never the goal of these conversations ever. But I share that because I do think that when I was living in that space and with that mentality, I didn't actually understand how much Jesus loved me, and I didn't understand his heart. I actually projected how hard I was on myself and this impossible standard that I had for myself. I projected that onto Jesus and how he must feel about me. And so there was a part of me that believed I have to, because I want to do all these things and do all this and have all this fun and go out drinking with my buddies and hooking up with all these guys or whatever it is, because I want to do all of this, I will put Jesus off, and I'll later, like down the road, like we make it this like boring, like when I'm older, like I'll do that. Like just like when I'm older, I'll look at the stock market. When I'm older, I'll make investments. When I'm older, I'll settle down in a marriage. Like what we do is we make the things that the Lord says are good. We make the things that he's given us as blessings in this life, as gifts in this life, like marriage, having kids, starting a family, following him, doing life the way that he calls us to do it. We make these things boring. The world and the enemy makes these things seem boring to where you've literally told yourself, I'll do it when I'm older. And right there, I just want to like nip that in the bud, because that is such a freaking lie. Like you're missing it. You don't understand how fun and truly freeing life with Jesus is if you've convinced yourself that it's something that you're going to do when you're older, like play golf or something. Like you're going to go play bridge with the girls when you're older. Like when did following Jesus become something that we're going to do when we're older? Like he's not boring. Life with him is not boring. I've lived both versions of this life. I've lived walking on the path of destruction in the ways of the wicked, and I have lived walking with Jesus intimately on the way of the path of life that leads to righteousness. And I am telling you that there is no life more fun than the life that comes with doing it with Jesus. There's just not. And that's coming from someone who was deep in the ways of the world, like truly enjoying myself to the fullest, I thought. And I remember Jonathan Pokluda saying on one of his podcast episodes that he talked to someone who didn't live out their fleshly desires, who didn't walk in those ways when they, when they were in college or when they were in high school or fill in the blank, whenever. And JP was just like, well, haven't I had more fun? I got to experience all those things and I still get to follow Jesus. Like, doesn't that kind of like, didn't I like win both sides of the deal? And the woman who he was saying that to said, no, I had way more fun and I have way less scars. And she's right. Like, what we don't talk about are all the scars and implications that come with, when we live out those fleshly desires and when we walk in sinfulness. And if it was truly gratifying, if it was truly pleasing, then why doesn't it heal anything? Why doesn't it make anything better? Why do you still go to bed at night feeling lonely and feeling all these voids? Why do you still feel shame and depressed and anxiety and angry? And I'm not saying you can't still struggle with those things when you're walking with Jesus. That is not what I'm saying. Like, plenty do. But what I'm saying is if the ways of the world and living the single life, the way the world tells you to live it, is so much better, then why do you have nothing positive to show for it? Like, and I think what you girls need to hear right now and what you need to understand is that you have an enemy who hates you and he's after your life. And so your salvation could be secure, but your life is still up for grabs. And if you're spending your weekends at the bars and I'm not, again, there's no shame, no condemnation. Like, I'm just trying to be real. I'm trying to be transparent. If you're spending your weekends in the hookup culture and getting drunk and getting high and doing all these things, and you're living for the world and you're living to gratify your desires of the flesh, then you have to understand that you're missing whatever the Lord created you to do and what he has called you to do, and you're not becoming the person he created you to fully become. And if you do have that day where you're talking about like, later I'll follow Jesus, later I'll go all in with Jesus, then you are in for a rude awakening, because there will be a day when you do hopefully go all in with Jesus, and you're going to look up and realize you wasted your whole entire life. And you're going to mourn it. I don't know anybody, including myself, I don't know anybody who walked in those ways, lived that way, and then when they find Jesus, doesn't have to take time to mourn all the time that they wasted. And there's nothing but a celebration of, I'm so glad I found him now. I literally pray over my daughter every single night that she finds Jesus young, that the Lord would soften her heart to him young. Why would I be praying that? Like, I lived this life, I lived on both sides, if you will. And I pray that because I've seen the hurt, the scars, the hardship, the healing that has to happen, that goes into when you try things the world's ways. And I remember someone saying, experience is an effective teacher, but it's an expensive teacher. And it is, and it comes at a cost. And if that way of the world was so good, then why are so many people who have truly found Jesus and genuinely are trying to walk with him, why are all of them telling you the same thing? Like, don't do it. It's not worth it. Because it's not worth it. And to the girl that thinks, well, I've already done that stuff, so might as well keep going. Like, no. That's not true. And that's the same exact lie the enemy tried to sell to me. And you need to tell that lie to go back to the pits of hell where it belongs, because that is not true. You are not too far gone. You did not sin too much. You did not make too many mistakes. I don't care what everyone around you has labeled you as. It's just a label, and you can take it off, and Jesus will. You don't have to keep being the party girl. You don't have to keep being the girl that sleeps around. You don't have to keep being the girl that you don't have to keep being what the world has told you that you are. I think some of you watch this, and if you're anything or anywhere where I was, in college and high school, I remember looking at girls who were, in a sense, making videos like this, doing podcasts like Let's Grow Girls, who were doing all these things for the Lord. And I remember looking at them being like, man, I wish I could be like that. And the truth is why can't you? The only thing good about me is him. The only reason I'm who I am now and who I am today is because of everything that God graciously invited me into and did in my life. And you are not disqualified from that. And if you feel like you are, then you need new friends. If your friends have made you feel like you can only be what you've been up to this point and you can never be anything different, then you need new friends. Because I'm sitting here telling you that if God can take someone like me and change them from the inside out and use them, he can certainly take someone like you and do it. I've sinned with the worst of them, man. And I really do believe, I share this stuff with you not to glorify my sinfulness, but because I want you to understand that there was nothing special about me. There was nothing like the only thing I did was accept the invitation. That's it. And that same invitation is extended to you. And so we talk about how should we live our singleness and how can singleness be fun if it's not the world's way. Guys, singleness is so much fun, not the world's way. Some of my best memories, none of my best memories are from the nights I went out and got drunk, okay? My best memories are the memories I have spent with people who I love, who love me, who are like-minded in the sense that they are running after Jesus as hard as they can. And we spent nights belly laughing. We spent nights eating good food, most of the time junk food probably, and talking until the sun came up. Those are the memories. It literally makes me tearful because I'm just I can sit here and reflect on some of the sweetest, best times in my life, and I'm gonna be real, most of them took place serving my summers in college as a college student at a Christian summer camp. Those are some of the best memories of my life so far. Obviously, behind my wedding, behind having my daughter, behind, accepting Jesus into my life, but the best times of my life are when I get to just be around people that I love. And we get to talk, and it's being known on a deep level, and it's knowing people on a deep level, and it's being like kids, honestly. It's not being too cool to just be like a kid and have not just childlike faith, but have childlike fun. It's playing games that in the moment make you feel like, so I'm too old for this, but you're not. It's just, it's the best to do life with people who allow you to be that kind of free, who allow you to be all that God created you to be and push you to be all that God created you to be. And it's just funny because I feel like I've gone to some pretty amazing parties and I've done some pretty amazing stuff in a worldly perspective, experienced worldliness in that realm that's oh wow, wasn't that so fun? Wasn't that so awesome? Does that not rank so high on your best top memories? And it's yeah, maybe when I was living that life, and now they pale in comparison to what the Lord has allowed me to experience and see. And now I have true freedom because I serve the Lord. He is my master. And because of that, I have true freedom. I dance in the freedom that he's given me. I am no longer a slave to my stomach. I am no longer a slave to my fleshly inclinations and desires. I get to just be Satan, And so I hope that you girls can find that freedom and know that singleness should be spent growing in intimacy with the Lord, building deep community, pouring into other girls and other friendships. And also, I feel this is also one of the questions y'all asked of, is it wrong to desire a husband when you're single? And I would just say no. I think a part of how singleness should be spent, if you desire to be married, would be it makes sense if part of singleness would also be spent, preparing to be a wife. But I want to be careful with that because I never want that to be the motive. I don't want you to, decide, hey, I'm going to start having quiet times more every morning. I'm going to take that more seriously, take time in the Word more seriously. I'm going to start living, I don't want you to think it's a transaction. I don't want you to walk away from this podcast and think, I want a husband, I desire a husband, so I'm going to go live this godly life that Satan's talking about. I'm going to draw near to Jesus, and then God's going to bring me a husband. I don't want that to be the motive because God has so much more for you than for you to try to walk with him and try to obey him and have obedience in his word with the motivation of then maybe he'll give me a husband. I think you would just miss out and you would toil and toil and toil and toil and be so disappointed. And I also think that if that is your mentality, you're putting way too much weight on a husband. And when I say that, what I say is that it is not wrong that you desire a husband. Marriage is a good thing. Marriage is a gift from God. That's not wrong to desire a husband. And I think I kind of grew up in a Christian culture that made me feel like, act like you don't want a husband because you need to be content in singleness. And I think being content in singleness is separate from also desiring to have a husband. Like, I think those things can coexist. I think being content in singleness is trusting the Lord's timing and being prayerful. And it's like, hey, maybe instead of worrying about if your husband's ever going to come or when he's going to come, maybe you take that worry and you bring it to the Father and you tell him about it. And then you pray over your future husband and you pray for this man and you pray that if the Lord would have a man for you like that. Like, there's a book called The 21 Days of Prayer for My Future Husband. And I did that in college, and it was the sweetest thing that I got to do with the Lord, because it was just allowed me to take these worries and anxieties and stresses and take them straight to the Father and say, Father, like, this is a desire of my heart. And so I want to lift this man up to you. I want to pray over this with you. I want to partner in this with you, Father, because ultimately I just want to be content in singleness, which really just means be content where you are. Like, just be content where you are. Like, let's just take singleness out of it. Like, we just need to learn to be content. And to be content means that God, we know and believe that God is not going to bring something outside of his perfect timing. And so what I mean by that is being content means trusting. Like, at its root, means trusting God. Trusting that he is never early, never late. He is always on time. His timing is perfect. Being content means also being fully satisfied in Jesus, right? And I think that what happens is we shift our satisfaction and put weight on other things. So we go, well, I'll be more satisfied when I have kids. I'll be more satisfied when I'm a wife. I'll be more satisfied when I get engaged. I'll be more satisfied when I'm in a dating relationship. And what's happening is you're changing the equation. The equation is Jesus plus nothing equals everything I need, contentment. You're changing it to Jesus plus insert the blank equals everything I need, not contentment. So I think that sometimes in singleness, when the desire becomes for a husband, I think becomes unhealthy, is when you've started saying, well, Jesus, I just need this thing to be truly content and to reach my full potential and to whatever it is, like fill it in. But it's also when you've put weight on a human that should have never been put on a human. And what's going to happen is, if that's the weight that you've put on your future husband, then let's say like he does come along, you guys start dating, you get engaged and you get married. When he starts letting you down, because he will, because we're broken, sinful people, like no matter our best efforts, the best piece of advice Keith and I were ever given was, man, just learn to be good at apologizing and asking for forgiveness. It's awesome because we do it all the time. Why? Because we're broken, sinful people. So the best thing you could do for yourself as someone who's single, who desires to be married one day, is to take that weight off of your future husband, in the sense of that weight was never supposed to be put on him. And what you're saying and what you don't realize you're doing is you're basically saying, I will be, like, when he comes along, he's going to fix it. When he comes along, he's going to fix this void, or boyd, I would like to call it, because it's a void for a boy that you think is going to be fixed by a boy. So if you put this void on your husband, what you're essentially saying is, when he comes along, then I will feel more complete. I will feel more beautiful. I will feel more like he's going to be this problem fixer, right? Like, I'm lonely and he's going to fix that. I want a family and he's going to fix that. I want to be a mom and he's going to fix that. And you're putting this unbelievable amount of pressure and weight onto this human being. And when they come along, if you keep doing that, then when you guys walk into marriage, when they disappoint you, when they have to ask for forgiveness, when they wrong you, when they hurt you, when they let you down, when they drop the ball, you're going to be so frustrated and confused and upset and second guess the marriage sometimes, because you put a weight on a human that was never supposed to be on a human. When in reality, there's this invitation to us in singleness to rightly distribute that weight and put it back where it belongs. And what that just means is letting God be on the throne of your heart. And then I think some of you need to ask, like, why do you want to be dating? Like, why don't you want to be single anymore? I think that's a really good exercise for y'all to maybe do this week, of just writing out, why don't I want to be single anymore? Or why do I want to be dating? Because I think this is also something that one of your questions was just like, how can I use singleness to prepare for a husband? Is it bad that I want a husband? And I think in line with that, I would just like to say that, what are we viewing dating as? Because if we're just viewing dating as something that we want to do because we're lonely on Valentine's Day and we want a Valentine and we want, we don't want to be alone anymore. And every time we go to a party, there's all these couples and I don't have a couple and I don't have my person and I don't know if he's coming and I don't know. I think a lot of us would realize how much insecurity is rooted in our singleness, right? And so a lot of our desire to not be single anymore is just because we feel insecure being single. And man, like, God has so much more for you than that. Like, I think that if you desire a husband, it makes sense that you would desire to not be single anymore because you want a husband. You want to be married ultimately. And so you're going to start moving through that and just putting that worry, putting that doubt. You're going to take that to the Father and you're going to pray through it and you're going to be honest with him. Don't hide it from him. He knows you want a husband. And so go to him and say, like, is this a good desire? Is this a desire you put on my heart? Like, let's talk about it. Let's pray through it, Father, because I really want this. And then I think for some of us, we just have to take a step back and be like, man, are you wanting to get married? And then if so, are you ready to be married, within the next year? And if you would say no to that, then I think it's kind of this weird, like, well, then why do you want to be dating? If you're not ready to be married and that seems like a really far off thing, then why are we in a rush to be dating? And then what are we viewing dating as? Because dating is a process of evaluation that we use to find out if we're going to marry this person or not. Like, truly, dating's going to end in a marriage or it's going to end with you being single again. And so I think that our society and world has made dating like this, like, I don't know, we've almost like put dating on a pedestal. And I just want to dethrone dating real quick and just say, like, dating just should not like carry that much weight. Like, dating should literally be a process of you evaluating someone to see if you're going to marry them or not. And I think we've made dating so much more than it is, and we've made it like everything it's not supposed to be. Like, dating nowadays is like you get a marriage with all the benefits, but you don't have to put in all the work, and it doesn't have all the same pressures as a real marriage does. And so it's just like this blissful, like, fake form of marriage where actually it's just rooted in insecurity and the other person can always opt out or leave. Like, and I just can't think of anything worse, honestly. And so I'm just like, man, let's just date. Like, let's not date unless we find someone that we're like, man, I could see myself potentially marrying this person and wanting to marry this person, or I want to get to know this person to see if they would be someone I'd want to marry. And I think that's also something we can reflect on and figure out in our own heart of, like, what is dating to me? And then dealing with that head on of, how did it become this thing to me? Why is it this way to me? What am I ultimately like tying up with dating? So like I said, these are all going to be like one-offs and individual podcast episodes eventually. But right now I just want to touch like abroad topically. And then soulmates, I wanted to touch on that. You're not someone else's half. Like, there's not... my problem with soulmates is that it's this mentality of I'm missing something until I find another person, and I'm half and they're half and together we're whole. And it's like, no, you're a whole individual person on your own. And I want to share this prayer with you that I pray over my daughter every night and that I prayed over myself before I met Keat and before I got married to Keat, was just, Lord, I want to get married. If there's someone out there that we would be better together than we are apart. And I think that ultimately should be our heart, right? Like, we should want to get married, and it's not wrong to want it for like other things, but I think, man, to get to a place where you can just say, God, I want to get married. If there's someone out there that we would be better together than we would be apart, because marriage is refining and marriage is sacrificial and marriage involves selflessness. And honestly, guys, like, I've been refined so much more in my marriage than I ever was single, but that was good for Sagan. Like, it is, I have seen it up close that being with Keat has made me better than being apart from Keat. However, there are people who don't need necessarily to be in a marriage to experience that and to grow in those ways and be refined that way. And so I just think that's like the beauty of it, is like Paul tells us, better to be single if you can than to be married. And I think there's value in that. And it's not to put one above the other. It's just to have an understanding of, man, why be married if that marriage is not going to refine you more and make you better, and you two are not going to be better together than you were single, right? And so I just wanted to touch on that because someone asked a question about soulmates. And man, I want you to know and to firmly understand that marriage is a gift from God, and it reflects how Christ loves the church. But along with that, like, it's not you finding your soulmate. Like, your soulmate is Jesus. So let's just like end that there. Another episode. So the next thing is dressing modestly, and then can I make the first move? And then we're going to wrap it up. So dressing modestly, this is going to be a whole nother podcast episode too, but just to touch on a few points here. Someone said, how do I dress modestly? I don't feel as attractive as the other women when I'm not, when I'm dressing modestly. And I totally get that. Like, it's so hard, especially when there's these beautiful women around you and they're all wearing these, tighter, shorter things or flashier things. And I would just say this, as someone who also has walked through a season of life where my clothes were a direct reflection of where my heart was. And I wanted to turn heads. I wanted that kind of attention, and I wore things to get that kind of attention. And I can just say that I think in that season, I would have told you I'm so confident. Like, I'm so confident. That's why I can like wear stuff like this, because I'm so confident. And in reality, it's like, no. For me, like my heart, I was so insecure, and I needed that validation. I needed those heads to turn. I needed that kind of attention. And I'm not like, again, no shame, no condemnation. Like, that was Satan. That was my heart for my wardrobe. And I really do believe that also sometimes girls dress differently because they just don't know, and you can't know what you don't know. And even for instance, like, I've had to do a lot of work with modesty and just dressing in general, because I was an athlete in track. And so I was surrounded by, sports bras and spandex for most of my life, especially at summer training camps and stuff like that. And so in my brain, like, modesty was like, it's covered, like, it's not hanging out. That was modesty. And now, like, where I'm at in life is, hey, modesty is, for me personally, has become just looking in the mirror and being like, okay, it's not wrong to feel beautiful. I hope you feel beautiful when you look in the mirror. I hope you know you're beautiful. What's wrong is when we start over-identifying with our clothes and what we wear, and we start leveraging them to get certain reactions, certain responses, I think it's just knowing your heart. Like, I think there are days where I could wear one outfit and think nothing of it, and I genuinely don't believe that it's a sin for me to walk out the door in it and wear it, because my heart, I didn't think twice about it. Like, it was just like, and I think two things on that is, one, I think sometimes when we're thoughtless about something, it's giving it the opportunity to not bring glory to God and to dishonor God. And even if that wasn't our intent, I think sometimes thoughtlessness can get us into trouble. And thoughtlessness just means, we're not being thoughtful about it. And I think that as you grow in intimacy with the Lord, as you grow in your faith, you start realizing, like, man, thoughtlessness is just as bad as sin, as like the literal sinfulness. Because if I'm like doing life with Jesus, then I should want every part of my life and everything I do to glorify and reflect Him. And so there is a sweetness in that, and getting to walk with Him in that, and figuring out, okay, God, normally I wouldn't think twice about this, but now I am, because I want to honor you in all that I do. And that's a really sweet process to get to walk through Him with, and it's not shameful and condemning. But then the other side is like, there's a day I could wear one outfit and I could leave the door and not think twice about it. Okay. And then later that week, I could put on that same outfit and I might look in the mirror and go, ooh, wow, like my butt looks good or whatever. And I think that's when we as women just need to be mindful of that, of like, okay, not saying it's wrong that your butt looks good, but just like digging a little further and digging a little deeper into those kinds of thoughts. And being like, for me, like as a wife, it's like, oh dang, like I just noticed this part of my body looks good in this. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe, how do I put this? I think that if the motive is ever like to make much of Sagan, to motivate myself, to get a reaction, to be like, oh yeah, my butt looks good, so I'm gonna wear these because my butt looks good. It's like, well, why do you want your butt to look good when you go to the gym right now? You know what I mean? Like, there's just like a whole nother layer to that, and we just have to be willing to do the extra like 5-minute thought work that it takes to get to the bottom of that and figure that out. Because modesty is a posture, it's a heart posture, and modesty is so much more than just what you wear. It's why you're wearing it. It's what is your motivation with that. And so I just want to be very gracious with modesty, because I really do believe that like it also is in different levels depending on like where you're at with your walk with Jesus. And I'm not saying like, oh, you're a mega Christian if like you are wearing turtlenecks and long dresses that go to the floor. I'm not saying that at all. When I say different like levels of modesty or different, I just think people are in different places, and I think that's why we're so lucky that we serve a God who looks at our heart. And that's why we have to remember that modesty is a heart posture. Modesty is, man, where's your heart in that? Like, what did you think about when you put that outfit on? Or what did you think about when you left the house? And then the second part of that is just like, if guys are not finding you as attractive because you're not dressed like the girl beside you and you're dressed more modestly, then we shouldn't want the, like... That's a silly guy. Like, I'll just put it that way. Let's just not even waste our time, you know? And that's nothing against like those guys. Like, Jesus could change them tomorrow. Like, but the reality is like they are where they are right now. And if a guy is not attracted to you because you're not letting things hang out or you're not wearing a certain outfit, then like we don't need that guy, you know? And also, I think more importantly, what is it in you that is bothered by that? Like, why do you want that guy's attention in that way? And I think that is the big thing I don't want us to miss in that. It's just, if your care and your mind is wrapped around and can't get off of, well, I want to wear this, but like if I wear this, then guys aren't going to look at me as much, or like guys aren't going to make me, like I don't feel as attractive. I think that's hard work that we have to do. And that's something that we have to sit down with the Lord and sit down with ourselves and be like, man, like, why do I feel like I have to do that? Or like, why do I feel like that's true even? Because really it's not. Like, I just think that a beautiful woman radiates from within too. And there's something really captivating about genuine confidence. And you girls know what I'm talking about. Like when a woman walks into a room and, you know, you can just tell her beauty is not striving. One, it's inviting and warm and it makes you want to draw near to her. And two, it's like very enduring and it's very captivating. And it's the kind of beautiful that I truly believe God created all of us to be, but we can't be without Him, because it's rooted in security in our worth and knowing who we are and whose we are. And so, yeah, I just think that just clothes are so much more than just the outward appearance. Like it is truly an overflow from the heart. And now, can I make the first move? This is where we're ending. Oh my gosh, this guy has been a little long. But we're going to end here. Can I make the first move? I just laughed when I heard this because I was like, girl, yes, make the first move. I'm literally like throwing my notes for those who are listening to the podcast right now. But this is going to be another episode because I have too much to say on this. And yeah, I was going to talk about Ruth. Because Ruth, let's be real, shot her shot with Boaz. But there's just like so much more I want to say about that. And I think that was stirring my heart a lot this week. So I don't want to just try to cram it into the next 2 minutes. But girls, yes, you can shoot your shot. And this may be like, some people may disagree with that because we talk about like the guy needs to be the pursuer. And I totally agree with that. I don't think you shooting your shot is you pursuing him in the relationship, right? And I think pursuit is so important because pursuit is what you do with your spouse every single day. Like Keith pursues me every day. I pursue Keith every day. So really what we're looking for when it's the reason it's so important that a man pursues you and that you see him pursuing you is because he's showing you what he's going to do within your marriage. And that is really, really important. That's a really important part of the evaluation process. And so I'm not saying there's not a place for a guy to pursue you romantically and that he should. And I also am not saying that girls don't deserve that, because you are worthy and deserving of being pursued. I mean, literally, the savior of the universe, like our God, sent his one and only son down to die for our sins, and he pursued us like with love, and he still pursues us to this day. And so I just think that if the Lord of all and our Savior Jesus pursues us, then how much more should we, expect a man to pursue us romantically? But I just don't think there's anything wrong with shooting your shot and then allowing him to do the rest. Like, like on the pursuit side, I just don't. And maybe that's like unpopular opinion, but I am just like, girl, if he's not getting it, and if you are interested in a man and like, you're like, man, he's just such a God-fearing man. He is such a, great man. And I've done it. Like, I'm not like, I literally, Keith was the first guy I didn't shoot my shot with. And then y'all are like, well, that's who you married, so what does that say? But no, funnier story that I could share at a later time. I did shoot my shot and the Lord blocked it. And that was just him. He was like, nope, that's not my plan for you. And I'm so grateful he did that. But I still don't, I look back at that and I'm like, there was nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with letting a guy know, hey, I've seen you and you'll be looking fine. No, I've seen you, and from what I've observed, from getting to know you, you have a really great heart. I've seen that how you love people, how you lead people. I'm just like making something up. Maybe it's a guy in your small group or something, or it's a guy you go to church with and you're like, man, I've just seen this guy and he just seems so awesome. He seems like he's on fire for the Lord. We served at camp together or whatnot, or we served on Wednesday nights together, and whatever the reason may be. And I just love getting to know him, and I want to see if there's something there. And if he hasn't, like, the worst thing that can happen is you shoot your shot and he says no, right? And I know that's super scary, but like, then we move on and we go, thank you, Jesus, for protecting us from men that we're not supposed to marry. And that's not to say that they're bad men, but it's just like, hey, that wasn't yours, and that's okay. And so, yeah, I just think I'm a big advocate for, okay, yeah, shoot your shot. Like, if you know he's a good dude and you've heard like his reputation precedes him and he's pursuing the Lord and he has good character and you've seen his heart at play, then I just really don't think there's anything wrong with like reaching out and saying what you've seen and what you've liked, and then following with, I would love to get a coffee sometime, or I was just wondering if you'd want to go grab a bite to eat or something sometime and get to know each other a little better. So, and then you let him do the rest, and that's where he gets to pursue you. So I don't think you lose the pursuit by shooting the first shot. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't. I think that's where you have to be really careful of, okay, if you're going to shoot the first shot, you need to make sure, shoot your shot, follow through, and back away. And let him do the rest of the relationship. Like, let him be the pursuer. Let him be the man. Let him pursue you as a man of God. And yeah, so anyways, girls, I obviously had a lot to say on this. And like I said, I'm really excited because there's going to be so many one-off podcast episodes from this, because I know that y'all really want to talk about singleness. And I hope that today's episode was encouraging and life-giving, and that the Lord just allowed it to be whatever you needed it to be. And guys, girls, my goodness, I got to stop doing that. Girls, I just want you to know you're beautiful and you're wonderful and you're lovely, and any guy would really be lucky to have you. But more than that, I don't want you to have confidence in just that. I want you to have confidence in the Lord and who he made you to be, because you were so much more. You're so much more than you even understand and you give yourself credit for. And it's not to make much of you, but to make much of the God who made you. And you are so special. And I know it's so cliche, but really any guy would be lucky to have you. And I hope that you know that. And I hope that you just get on fire for the Lord and you put those roots down with some good community, and you pour into your girls and you run fast after the Father. And you know what? One day you'll look over and there might be someone running beside you, and he might be a little cute. And I think that guy's worth waiting for. So I love y'all, and I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see y'all next week on Let's Grow Girls.